the United States has issued a final and unequivocal warning to the Tehran regime. President Donald Trump himself was emphatic in declaring that if the violent repression and the killing of protesters did not cease immediately, there would be a terrible price to pay. However, blood has continued to flow through Iranian streets. Reports indicate that protesters are still being targeted, arrested, and summarily executed. Faced with this scenario of disregard for human rights and defiance of international authority, Washington has decided that the time for words is over. The United States is now preparing to act with all its military and financial weight. American warships are already strategically positioned at Iran's doorstep, and the world watches with bated breath as something of catastrophic proportions for the regime is about to happen. The hour of reckoning seems to be approaching for Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, and he is fully aware of it. On January 26th, multiple media sources reported a massive movement of U.S. naval forces, a clear demonstration that Washington is willing to project real power behind its diplomatic rhetoric. According to detailed information from The Washington Post, the nuclear-powered aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln has arrived in the vicinity of Iranian territorial waters, accompanied by its formidable carrier strike group. This movement is not just a routine exercise, it is a direct message that American patience has run out. Before we continue with the details of this unprecedented military movement, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. Your subscription is essential for us to continue bringing high-quality geopolitical analysis. Currently sailing toward the depths of the Middle East, the carrier is in a state of maximum readiness for what may come next. Trump's options on the table range from surgical strikes against critical infrastructure to the use of naval force to support regime change, something Iranian protesters have been bravely fighting for weeks. The fate of the region now depends on Trump's final decisions, and we will explore the possible strategic ramifications later in this video. For now, what is known is that the USS Abraham Lincoln is not alone. It is escorted by 3 guided missile destroyers and has just moved from the western Indian Ocean, a position that previously limited its immediate strike capability, to the North Arabian Sea or the Gulf of Oman. This new position places Tehran directly within the range of American aircraft and missiles. According to analysis from The Washington Post, the USS Abraham Lincoln Strike Group represents, in itself, an existential threat to the regime. The carrier carries a crew of over 5,000 sailors and dozens of state-of-the-art combat aircraft, ready to launch devastating airstrikes at any moment. The 3 destroyers accompanying the giant, the USS Frankie Peterson Jr., the USS Michael Murphy, and the U.S. Spruance, carry hundreds of Tomahawk cruise missiles and possess Aegis air defense systems capable of neutralizing swarms of Iranian drones and ballistic missiles. If you are finding this analysis important, leave your like right now. This helps YouTube deliver this content to more people interested in global stability. Trump has made a point of letting Tehran know exactly what is coming. Speaking to reporters on January 22nd, he confirmed the fleet's movement with a tone of warning. "We have a massive flotilla going in that direction, and we'll see what happens. It's a formidable force. I would prefer that nothing happens, but we are watching their every move very closely." The specialized portal, the War Zone, TWZ, highlighted that Trump described this group as an armada, leaving his intentions deliberately open to interpretation, a classic tactic of strategic ambiguity to keep the adversary in a constant state of alert and uncertainty. The firepower concentrated in this armada is impressive. The USS Abraham Lincoln has 8 flight squadrons operating a diverse range of aircraft, including F-35C Lightning II stealth fighters, versatile FA-18E F Super Hornets, E-2D Hawkeye early warning aircraft, MH-60R Seahawk helicopters, CMV-22B Osprey transport aircraft, and powerful EA-18G Growler electronic warfare jets. This combination offers unprecedented versatility, allowing for everything from deep surveillance operations to electronic attacks that can completely blind Iranian defenses even before the first kinetic shot. However, the American strategy is not limited to the sea alone. Although there has been no visible increase in heavy bombers at the Diego Garcia base in the Indian Ocean, frequent flights of C-17 Globemaster III cargo jets have been recorded, suggesting that the U.S. is quietly reinforcing its ammunition and logistical supply stocks in the region. Additionally, THAAD high-altitude defense systems have been moved to the Middle East to protect American and allied assets from any Iranian retaliation attempts. Share this video on your social networks and discussion groups. correct information is the best tool against propaganda and misinformation. Interestingly, the United Kingdom is also showing clear signs of involvement. Flight records indicate that several F-15E Strike Eagle fighters, accompanied by KC-135 Stratotanker refueling planes, left their bases on British soil for the Middle East. London has also moved the Typhoon Squadron to the Gulf region, officially for defensive purposes, but TWZ analysts speculate that this growing force will join the assets already present, including Arleigh Burke-class destroyers and possibly Virginia-class attack submarines operating silently in the depths. The Tehran regime's response has been one of ill-disguised nervousness. The Washington Post reported that the Iranian armed forces were placed on high alert. A senior Iranian official, speaking on condition of anonymity, initially tried to project an image of calm, stating that he hoped the military development would not lead to a real confrontation, but stressed that the country is ready for the worst-case scenario. He warned that if the US fires the first shot, Iran's response will be much larger than anything seen previously, treating any attack, whether surgical or limited, as a declaration of total war. What do you think of this posture from Iran? Would they have the courage to face the American armada? Leave your comment below. We want to know your opinion. Experts like David Kozakaru of the Times of Israel warn that Iranian threats must be taken seriously. The regime may opt for a rapid escalation through multiple vectors if it feels its existence is at risk. This could include attacks on American bases throughout the region, disruption of global energy flows, and direct attacks against Israel. The Strait of Hormuz remains Tehran's greatest pressure point. About a fifth of the world's oil passes through there. Closing the strait would be a desperate measure, but one that would cause an immediate global economic shock. Despite the heated rhetoric, Iran's recent history shows a certain restraint. During Operation Midnight Hammer in 2025, when 125 American aircraft attacked Iranian nuclear facilities, Tehran's response was limited to a missile attack against a US base in Qatar, which Trump described as weak and expected. However, former fighter pilot Max Afterburner notes that Iran is desperately trying to convince the world that it possesses hypersonic anti-ship missiles capable of hitting the USS Abraham Lincoln at distances of up to 1 to 200 nautical miles. The Iranian arsenal includes the Khalij-Fars, Persian Gulf, ballistic missile, with a range of 300 kilometers and a speed of Mach 4, in addition to the Noor and Qatar coastal defense systems. The Abu Mahdi cruise missile, which supposedly uses artificial intelligence to adjust its flight path, is another concern, with an alleged range of over 1,000 kilometers. Whether these specifications are real or just propaganda is something that would only be tested in real combat against superior US electronic defenses. Take this moment to check if you are still subscribed to the channel. Often YouTube removes subscriptions without notice. Ensure you are part of our community. The situation becomes even more unpredictable with the involvement of proxy groups in Iraq and Yemen, which have already indicated readiness to attack American assets. Meanwhile, the streets of Iran remain stained with the blood of protesters. The regime looks like a cornered chihuahua, as Afterburner described, barking loudly and threatening to bite because it has nowhere to escape. Why is this happening now? The answer lies in Iran's internal instability. The protests, which began due to economic collapse, have turned into an open revolt against the Khamenei regime. Trump has supported the protesters, encouraging them to take back their institutions and promising that help is on the way. He even canceled meetings with Iranian officials until the execution stopped. The death toll is uncertain, but the BBC reported that Khamenei himself acknowledged thousands of victims. Estimates suggest the number could be well over 3,000 people. The US is now at a crossroads. Continue with only moral support, or use the armada positioned in the Gulf to deal the final blow to the regime. Thank you for watching this far. If you want to support our work more directly, consider becoming a channel member. Members have access to exclusive badges, custom emojis, and priority in comment replies. Click the join button and join our fleet. The presence of the USS Abraham Lincoln is not just a show of force. It is the prelude to a possible change in the world order. The silence that precedes the storm in the Gulf is charged with electricity. Trump has proven he is not afraid to use American military power, and Iran is playing a dangerous game of survival. Stay tuned for the next developments as history is being written now in the warm waters of the Middle East. Don't forget, like, subscribe, and share. See you in the next video. Deep analysis: the chessboard in the Strait of Hormuz. To understand the magnitude of what is at stake, we need to dive into the technical and tactical specifics that make this confrontation so dangerous. The USS Abraham Lincoln is not just a ship, it is a floating city of steel, a symbol of the United States' global power projection. When a carrier strike group, CSG, moves, it alters the regional power balance instantly. The Lincoln's arrival in the Arabian Sea sends shockwaves not only to Tehran, but also to Moscow and Beijing, which are closely watching how Washington deals with its adversaries in the Middle East. The technology aboard the Lincoln, especially the F-35C fighters, represents a generational leap that Iranian air defenses, largely based on older Russian systems like the S-300, would have extreme difficulty countering. The F-35C is a force multiplier. It doesn't just attack, but serves as a central intelligence node, coordinating the data flow between destroyers and other aircraft. This means that in a conflict scenario, Iran could see its command and control centers destroyed before they even detect the presence of any American aircraft in their airspace. If you are enjoying this detailed technical analysis, consider supporting the channel by becoming a member. Your support allows us to invest in even deeper research into military technology. On the other side, Iran bets on asymmetric warfare. They know they cannot win a conventional naval battle against the US Navy. Therefore, they have invested heavily in anti-ship ballistic missiles and swarms of fast boats armed with missiles. The Iranian strategy is to saturate American defenses. They believe that if they launch hundreds of missiles and drones simultaneously, some will manage to pass through the destroyer's Aegis shield and hit the aircraft carrier. It is a high-risk tactic that could lead to nuclear retaliation, but for a regime that feels cornered, the logic of survival can be distorted. Furthermore, the issue of the Strait of Hormuz is a global economic trigger. If Iran tries to mine the strait or use its coastal missile batteries to prevent the passage of oil tankers, the price of a barrel of oil could skyrocket to levels never seen before, causing an instant global recession. This puts immense pressure on US allies in Europe and Asia, which rely heavily on this supply route. Trump knows this, and the Armada's positioning is also a way to ensure that the energy flow remains uninterrupted under the protection of American guns. Comment below. Do you believe the price of fuel in your country would be affected by a conflict in the Gulf? We want to see your economic analysis in the comments. The British presence, with Typhoon fighters and F-15Es operating from bases in the UK and Qatar, reinforces the international coalition. This shows that the US is not acting alone, which is crucial for the international legitimacy of any future action. Coordination between the Royal Air Force, RAF, and the US Navy creates a surveillance network that covers the entire Persian Gulf, making it almost impossible for Iran to carry out any surprise moves. Meanwhile, the internal situation in Iran continues to deteriorate. The economy, suffocated by years of sanctions and mismanagement, is in shambles. Galloping inflation and the shortage of basic goods fuel popular fury. The Khamenei regime is in a precarious position. If it yields to the protesters' demands, it loses control. If it continues the killing, it attracts foreign military intervention. It is a geopolitical dead end. Don't forget to share this video with your friends who are interested in history and geopolitics. Let's expand this debate beyond information bubbles. Trump's rhetoric about help that is on the way can be interpreted in several ways. It could be logistical support for opposition groups, or it could be the prelude to a bombing campaign aimed at paralyzing the regime's repressive arm, such as the Revolutionary Guard, IRGC. What is certain is that the USS Abraham Lincoln is ready for any of these missions. Combat readiness is total, and the pilots are just waiting for the final order. History teaches us that tensions like this rarely dissipate without a catalytic event. The world now waits to see if that event will be a miscalculation by a nervous Iranian pilot, a strategic decision from Washington, or an internal collapse in Tehran. Either way, the American Armada is there to ensure that the final outcome favors the interests of the United States and its allies. Thank you for joining us on this informative journey. Your audience is what motivates us to seek the truth behind the headlines. Remember to leave your like, subscribe, and comment. Until the next breaking news update. Strategic implications: the global impact of the Gulf standoff. The current standoff in the Gulf is not merely a regional dispute. it is a critical juncture in global geopolitics that could redefine international relations for decades. The deployment of the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group is a clear signal of the United States' commitment to maintaining the status quo and protecting its interests in one of the world's most volatile regions. This move has profound implications for global security, economic stability, and the future of international law. One of the most significant strategic implications is the message it sends to other global powers. By demonstrating its willingness to deploy such a massive force in response to regional instability and human rights abuses, the U.S. is reaffirming its role as the primary guarantor of global security. This is particularly relevant in the context of increasing competition with China and Russia, both of which have significant interests in the Middle East. The U.S.'s ability to project power so effectively serves as a deterrent against other nations that might seek to challenge the international order. If you find this deep dive into global strategy compelling, please consider supporting our channel by becoming a member. Your contributions help us produce more in-depth content like this. Furthermore, the economic consequences of a potential conflict in the Gulf cannot be overstated. The Strait of Hormuz is the world's most important oil transit choke point, with millions of barrels of oil passing through it every day. Any disruption to this flow would have an immediate and devastating impact on the global economy. Oil prices would likely skyrocket, leading to increased costs for transportation, manufacturing, and consumer goods worldwide. This would particularly affect developing nations and those heavily dependent on oil imports, potentially leading to widespread economic hardship and social unrest. The humanitarian aspect of the situation is also a major concern. The ongoing protests in Iran and the regime's violent response have already resulted in thousands of deaths and injuries. A full-scale military conflict would only exacerbate this suffering, leading to a massive humanitarian crisis. The international community has a responsibility to protect civilians and ensure that human rights are respected, even in times of conflict. The U.S.'s actions in the Gulf are partly motivated by this responsibility, as it seeks to pressure the Iranian regime to end its repression of its own people. What are your thoughts on the humanitarian impact of this conflict? Should the international community do more to protect Iranian civilians? Share your views in the comments below. In addition to these immediate concerns, the Gulf standoff also has long-term implications for the future of international law and the rules-based international order. The U.S.'s decision to act in defense of human rights and regional stability, even without a clear mandate from the United Nations, raises important questions about the role of international institutions in managing global crises. While some argue that such actions are necessary to prevent atrocities and maintain order, others worry that they could undermine the authority of the UN and lead to a more fragmented and unstable international system. The role of technology in this conflict is also a key factor. The use of advanced weaponry, such as stealth fighters, precision-guided missiles, and electronic warfare systems, has fundamentally changed the nature of modern warfare. This technology allows for more precise and effective strikes, but it also increases the risk of unintended consequences and escalation. The U.S.'s technological superiority gives it a significant advantage, but it also places a heavy burden of responsibility on its leaders to use this power wisely and ethically. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more updates on this developing story. We will continue to provide you with the latest news and analysis as the situation in the Gulf evolves. As we look to the future, it is clear that the outcome of the Gulf standoff will have a lasting impact on the world. Whether it leads to a peaceful resolution, a change in regime, or a full-scale conflict, the consequences will be felt far beyond the borders of Iran and the Middle East. The international community must remain vigilant and work together to ensure that the situation is managed in a way that promotes peace, security, and respect for human rights. The USS Abraham Lincoln and its strike group remain on high alert, ready to respond to any provocation. The world watches and waits, hoping for a resolution that avoids further bloodshed and instability. The stakes could not be higher, and the decisions made in the coming days and weeks will shape the course of history for years to come. Thank you for your continued support and for being part of our community. Your engagement and feedback are invaluable to us. Remember to like, share, and comment on this video. We look forward to seeing you in our next update.